The fresh water of our Great Lakes is a rare and wonderful thing. After all, 97% of the water on planet Earth is salt water. Just 2.5% is fresh water, and almost all of that is frozen. So, when it comes to fresh surface water, the Great Lakes are the world champs. They hold 1/5 of the planetary supply. So, we live in the middle of something precious. How do we take care of it? Citizen groups, governments, businesses, and just plain folks around Benzie County and beyond are working to protect our watersheds. Crystal Lake is Benzie's jewel, the state's 9th largest inland lake. It's about 8 miles long and has miles of sandy beaches, thanks actually to a project gone terribly wrong that drained the lake and exposed parts of its sandy bottom. Mike Jones, who works a block from Crystal Lake at the Benzie Conservation District in downtown Beulah, tells us more about the things he and others are doing to keep Crystal one of Michigan's cleanest.
I'd say Crystal Lake is probably one of the centerpiece lakes for Benzie County. I mean, it has a lot of history, from the story of Archibald Jones when the lake level was dropped and exposing a strip of beach around the entire lake, to just the size and the beauty of it. A lot of people come to Crystal Lake because it's such a beautiful lake and because it's clean. And in northern Michigan we have a lot of beautiful clean lakes, but Crystal has a lot of what people are looking for. You come up here and go fishing, water sports, paddling, just all kinds of things that make it a great place to be. At the Conservation District, we collaborate with the Crystal Lake and Watershed Association to do water quality monitoring. We monitor the temperature and the dissolved oxygen levels, the phosphorus loading. All of that is just making sure that the high water quality we have continues to be that way, and if anything ever changes, then hopefully we'll be able to detect that and then address it. We're here at the Crystal Lake outlet. Here at the outlet we have illustrations of one of the large problems that is affecting not just the Crystal Lake and Benzie River watersheds, but all of our watersheds. Those are invasive plants. Behind me here, we have a stand of invasive Phragmites, which is a non-native grass that takes over wetland habitats. And if you could have seen the area last fall when the plants were mature, the plants were well over 10 feet high and so dense that you could not see more than 5 feet into it. Phragmites is affecting a lot of places here in Benzie County. Betsy Bay is very heavily infested, and it crowds out native plants to the point that even wildlife has a hard time utilizing the area. This patch was treated last fall by the Benzie Conservation District and the Crystal Lake and Watershed Association. There are efforts all over the county to control Phragmites, so that we don't have problems like in southern Michigan where entire lakes and entire bays of Lake Michigan and Lake Huron are infested with Phragmites, which affects not only wildlife and plant communities, but it also affects people's home values and recreation values for our tourism-based economy. As you walk in here to the outlet, is a great concentration of invasive shrubs, including bush honeysuckle and autumn olive, and those affect our ecosystems in the respect that crowd out native plants, they crowd out the regeneration of our native trees like maples and beeches and ash, so that in areas where we have native forests, as the adult trees die off, we don't have seedlings to replace them because they're shaded out by these invasive plants. So it's another problem that we've begun to work on. Lots of groups within Benzie County trying to get rid of invasive plants.
Upper and Lower Herring Lakes are tucked away off the beaten path south of Frankfort and are Benzie's undiscovered treasure. The land around them is a mix of forests and farms, and the large wetland along one shore has helped keep the entire system in excellent shape. Dave Long and Bill Henning talk about the challenge of finding funding for protecting two lakes that are actually now in very good shape, and why they continue to build an impressive database on these two tiny treasures.
We didn't know what the quality of the lake water was here and all of the watershed. And so really our main purpose in getting started was to identify if we did indeed have any problems. And that's where we are now. We're still in the process of sort of getting baseline data to establish exactly what the quality of the watershed is at this point.
Yeah, so far in the data that we've sampled over the last 6 years, you know, we've found that the water is not of bad quality. It's actually very good. We have low E. coli counts in the lake. We have fairly low phosphorus and you know, about normal nitrogen. We do have in Upper Herring Lake, we have a weed bed that goes around the lake, and anecdotally we've seen it maybe get larger. So we're a little bit concerned about what the nutrient load is. And so part of our sampling is to determine what the nutrient load is, you know, what comes in, what goes out. We also have a couple potential challenges to the watershed in that there's several farms that have cattle. And the good thing about Herring Lake is right before you get in, the water comes into the lake, there is a nice large swamp that acts as a great filter for both E. coli and nutrients. But the first thing you have to do is figure out, is there a problem with the water quality coming off the agricultural land? You don't want to go and point fingers at the farmers, because this is their livelihood. They do in many cases. I know Adam Putney put in a retention pond to catch the water and catch you know, the nutrients and so forth. And he did that without anybody prompting him, because he knew it was good for sustainability of the water quality around the lake.
Well, I know really again starting back in the fall of '06 is when we really got together, the two areas, and formed a Herring Lakes Watershed Steering Committee. And again, with the idea of how can we work cooperatively to determine, you know, what the quality of the lakes are, and if there is a problem, try and identify where the problem would be coming from. But we plan out what testing we want to do as a cooperative effort. Now, Lower Herring Lake does some additional testing on their own, but again, we work together to determine where the best places are to sample and what we need to be looking at to define the health of the lakes. And so then we end up splitting the monetary cost too, along with getting volunteers to do the sampling.
Because these are recreational lakes, and there's a lot of swimming and boating and water skiing in both lakes, you know, E. coli is one of our big concerns. So that like if my grandchildren come here and they go swimming off the boat, you know, they aren't at risk. And you know, from time to time we found some high E. coli. We actually did some sampling where we had the Great Lakes Water Research Lab over in Milwaukee do a technique that identified what species the E. coli came from. And out around the outlet from the swamp, we did get some cattle. But then up the lake a little bit, not too far from one of the resorts, we got quite a bit of human waste. And I don't know if that information was the stimulus for putting in a new septic system, but the individual that owned that put a new septic system in, and since then we have been getting almost no E. coli in that area whatsoever. So that has really improved the water quality, at least in the area where, you know, a lot of kids go swimming and so forth. One of the things that we can do, and we need to get a little bit of funding to do this because it's not cheap, but do an official watershed plan, which is done with the DNR and the state, and it really lays out, you know, all the information, and you need to have some background, you know, water quality data to actually even get started on that. but it identifies, you know, all the tributaries, all the sources. You look at point sources of and non-point sources of any potential inputs of nutrients and so forth. And then you know, with the overall health of the lakes and so forth, then you can devise a plan to move forward. We just don't have enough information to do that yet. And so we're going to be working towards that and also getting the funding.
One other area that we want to get into, we haven't done too much here in this area, is identification of any invasive aquatic plant species.
Yeah.
And again, what little we have done here on the lake, we don't believe we have any of the real nuisance species that other lakes have. But certainly that's one of the things we want to do, is do that monitoring and continue to do it, so if we do start to see something, we can take action quickly before it becomes a big problem. Sort of one, I guess, sort of a catch-22 for us here is that we're finding we really have a very high-quality lake at this point. And so as far as getting funding for implementing plans, it's very difficult because most of the money goes to places who need remediation to get their water quality back. We're just trying to make sure we maintain the water quality that we do have right now.
The Platte River actually starts in Grand Traverse County and flows for nearly 30 miles through many publicly owned forests, emptying into Lake Michigan at the Sleeping Bear National Lakeshore. Its many wetlands help keep it exceptionally clean. Anglers love the upper river's cold, bountiful waters, while visitors enjoy its last few miles, warm, slow-flowing, and a fine way to get to Lake Michigan by canoe. Bill Hurd tells us more, including how popular the Lower Platte is and the work local folks are doing to keep it so clean.
Beside the Platte River in Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, this is really a high point for the recreational use of the water. There's about 1,100,000 visitor use days that folks come to the park. A lot of that to see the sand dunes and the Lake Michigan beaches, but certainly a good share of that comes to enjoy the water along the Platte River, at the mouth of the Platte River where it empties into Lake Michigan, and canoe and kayak and swim and to tube around the Platte River. There's only about 5 miles of the river that's within the National Lakeshore, and there's about 90 miles of the watershed of the Platte River and its tributaries, so you can see that only a fraction of it is within the park. The Platte River has a high water quality. It's a blue ribbon trout stream, and folks have worked pretty tirelessly over the last 30 years to keep the water quality high in the Platte River, and that's one of the things that attracts folks to it. It's not too deep and doesn't have a strong current, but it's also the clarity of the water and the water quality that, it's not only a river that people canoe on, but they also want to get into to swim and to tube. So it's really a special feature here at Sleeping Bear Dunes. The water quality in the Platte River is exceptionally high, and a good indication of that is the variety of freshwater mussels that live in the Platte River. They're real sensitive to deterioration of the water, so there's more species of freshwater mussels, which some folks refer to as clams, 16 species in the Platte River, which is about twice as many as any other river in northwestern Michigan, so it's really quite an accomplishment. In addition to just the use of the river here within the lakeshore, just upstream from us is the Platte River Fish Hatchery, and of course that raising the coho salmon there has just changed the recreational use of Lake Michigan over the last, since the late 1960s. Before that, the Lake Michigan was pretty much just sort of a dead ecosystem. Certainly recreationally, there were just the small alewives that were dominating everything and would wash up on the beach and foul the beaches, so there wasn't even much use of the beaches during the summer months. There were no sport fishes of any size, and folks, didn't even have boats to go out. And as that fishery developed with the coho salmon, it really sort of transformed and made Lake Michigan into a sort of a destination for recreational use for sports fishing, and then eventually clean up the beaches of the dead alewives so that they were more available in the summertime for folks to use. The side effect of that was that the fish hatchery would also, in the process of raising the fish and a large amount of water that passed through the fish hatchery, would have a fair amount of phosphorus in it, which is sort of a fertilizer that would sort of change the Platte Lake and eventually the Platte River. So the folks up on the Platte Lake Improvement Association, starting 30 years ago, have really been advocates for improving that situation, working with the DNR, sometimes as a partner and sometimes as an advocate and sometimes as an adversary in court, and to the point now where the fish hatchery in the last couple of years has gone from 3,000 pounds of phosphorus to 85 pounds per year. So that's just a remarkable accomplishment, and a lot of the credit for the high water quality has to go to those folks at the Platte Lake Improvement Association. So again, it takes all kind of folks throughout the watershed. You know, what happens upstream eventually works its way down here to the few miles of river that's in the National Lakeshore. And so it's really a nice destination. Just behind us at the Platte River picnic area, we know from archaeological research that the Native Americans camped along the Platte River, short visits on hunting expeditions, but routinely over a period of about 1,000 years. So we're not the first to enjoy having camping grounds along the Platte River on both sides.
In Benzie County, all waters lead to Lake Michigan, and Lake Michigan is our super watershed. Our own local watersheds are a big part of it. Your participation in your own watershed has the biggest effect on the water quality where you live. The following groups are active participants in our watersheds and welcome your support.
Water is important to me and to my family.